king may move a man, a father may claim a son, that man can also move himself. And only then does that man truly begin his own game. Remember that howsoever you are played, or by whom, your soul is in your keeping alone. Even though those who presume to play you be kings or men of power, when you stand before God, you cannot say, "But I was told by others to do thus," or that virtue was not convenient at the time. This will not suffice. Remember that.
I will.
I want to begin by addressing you directly and providing a few essential tools to help you better understand the multitude of events and disagreements we'll be examining. These tools are vital for us to stand on a solid platform void of illusions, contradictions, and feelings. They will include the Qur'an itself, the meaning of God in the Islamic faith, and your innate abilities and mental faculties, beginning with the foundational principles of logic, which you naturally possess, and I am guiding your attention to it, enabling you to fully using it and have it readily at your disposal. First law, the law of non-contradiction. It is a universal and timeless principle fundamental to understanding reality and acquiring knowledge. It states that contradictory statements cannot both be true simultaneously. Without this law, our entire grasp of reality would collapse, taking reason and the human mind with it. In other words, our reality, as we know it, will cease to exist. For example, take a look at these two statements. Bosun Heggs is a real person. Bosun Heggs is a fictional character. Both of these statements cannot be true at the same time. The law of non-contradiction demonstrates that one of these statements must be false because two contradictory propositions cannot coexist as true. The law of excluded middle. The second law, the law of excluded middle, is another foundational principle of logic. It states that for any given proposition, either the proposition itself or its negation must be true. There is no middle ground where a statement can be neither true nor false. In essence, every statement must either be true or false, with no in-between. For example, take these two propositions. Bosun Heggs exists. Bosun Heggs does not exist. According to the law of excluded middle, one of these propositions must be true, while the other must be false. There is no third option, no middle ground where both could simultaneously be unspecified. By understanding and applying these foundational laws of logic, we strengthen our ability to reason, analyze, and grasp the reality around us. These principles are not mere abstract theories, but are brute facts and vital tools for navigating and making sense of the world. Don't overthink this because you already have an innate understanding of these principles. Let me illustrate this with an analogy. Consider a 25-year-old professional athlete, a 10-year-old child, and a 60-year-old adult. All three have two legs, but their strength, agility, and walking speed will vary greatly. Despite these differences, their legs serve the essential purpose of walking, enabling them all to reach the same destination. However, the time and effort required will differ significantly for each individual. In the same way, you already have the ability to understand and grasp anything that another human being has understood. The key difference lies in experience and practice. A beginner may require much more effort and time to reach the level of understanding an expert has achieved, but the potential is there for everyone. Anyone telling you otherwise is nothing but a lying fraudster, so please don't let anything intimidate or overwhelm you. I'm committed to presenting everything in a way that is simple and digestible, clear enough for even a 10-year-old to follow. Now, moving to the essential prerequisites. For us to gauge the validity of the information presented to us, we need a perceptive filter, a scale or a standard to weigh and examine that information. In this case, and since this is a matter regarding the Islamic faith dealing with Islamic propositions, our tool will be the only undisputed source among the entirety of the Muslim texts, the Qur'an. The Qur'an will be supreme judge that dissipates falsehoods and affirm truthfulness according to Islam. If you are not a Muslim but find these topics intriguing, I invite you to consider this perspective. Suppose you were a Muslim, firmly believing that the Qur'an is the Creator's divine revelation and the ultimate truth. How then would you approach and respond to the information presented by different Muslims from different sects? Number 1. The argumentative style of the Qur'an. The Qur'an does not demand blind faith or unquestioning adherence from its audience. Instead, it abounds with verses urging the use of reason, critical thinking, and both deductive and inductive reasoning. It explicitly discourages conformity, blind adherence to traditions, and uncritical acceptance of the views of ancestors, community leaders, or influential figures. To cite a few examples, Chapter 2, verse 170. When it is said to them, "Follow what Allah has revealed," they reply, "No, we only follow what we found our forefathers practicing." Would they still do so, even if their forefathers had absolutely no understanding or guidance? Chapter 34, verse 46. Tell them, O Messenger, I neither want to enter into unnecessary lengthy discussions with you, nor do I want to give you a long lecture. All I ask of you is, whether in pairs or alone, that you stop for a while and think. Chapter 12, verse 108. Tell them that this is my way, which is very clear and straight. My call is based on firm conviction, reason, knowledge, and understanding, mine as well as that of my followers. Chapter 43, verse 3. We verily have made it a Qur'an in Arabic, that you may be able to understand its meanings and its admonitions. Chapter 47, verse 24. Will they not then ponder over this Qur'an, or are there locks upon their hearts? Chapter 27, verse 64. Say, O Prophet, show me your proof, if what you say is true. Chapter 40, verse 83. When their messengers came to them with clear proofs, they were prideful in whatever worldly knowledge they had, and were ultimately overwhelmed by what they used to ridicule. Example for freedom of belief. Chapter 2, verse 256. Let there be no compulsion in religion, for the truth stands out clearly from falsehood. So whoever renounces false gods and believes in Allah has certainly grasped the firmest, unfailing handhold, and Allah is all-hearing, all-knowing. Chapter 10, verse 99. Had your Lord so willed, O Prophet, all people on earth would have certainly believed, every single one of them. Would you then force people to become believers? Chapter 5, verse 48. We have revealed to you, O Prophet, this book with the truth, as a confirmation of previous scriptures and a supreme authority on them. So judge between them by what Allah has revealed, and do not follow their desires over the truth that has come to you. To each of you we have ordained a code of law and a way of life. If Allah had willed, He would have made you one community. But His will is to test you with what He has given each of you. So compete with one another in doing good. To Allah you will all return. Then He will inform you of the truth regarding your differences. Chapter 88, verse 21 and 22. So, continue to remind all, O Prophet, for your duty is only to remind. You are not there to compel them to believe. Chapter 18, verse 29. And say, O Prophet, this is the truth from your Lord. Whoever wills let them believe, and whoever wills let them disbelieve. Keep in mind that the change of this faith came in a gradual manner and using various methods. One of the methods include abrogation, nasakh in Arabic, where verses of the Qur'an are deactivated in favor of others that are taken out of context to pillage lands, solidify the ruler's powers, persecute political dissidents, and peaceful non-Muslim communities. Using the Qur'an itself and some scholarly commentaries, this also will be easily demonstrated to be a fabrication, and that there's no such thing as abrogation in the Qur'an. If the channel gains enough support and the audience shows interest in this issue, I'll gladly debunk it. What and who is God in Islam? In Islam, God, Allah in Arabic, is regarded as the eternal creator and sustainer of the universe, embodying absolute perfection, omnipotence, omniscience, and infinite mercy. Central to Islamic theology is Tawheed, oneness of God, emphasizing that God is unique, incomparable, and free from any association with created beings or human-like qualities. Anthropomorphism and corporealism, the attribution of human or physical traits to God, are rejected in favor of tanzih, the affirmation of God's transcendence beyond all human understanding and limitations. The Qur'an prohibits depicting God in any form and stresses his indivisibility and absolute sovereignty. Verses such as those in Surat al-Ikhlas, which state, "Say, O Prophet, He is Allah, one and indivisible. Allah, the sustainer needed by all. He has never had offspring, nor was he born, and there is none comparable to him." And in chapter 42, verse 11, the verse continues to state, "There is nothing like him, for he alone is the all-hearing, all-seeing." The Qur'an succinctly encapsulates his attributes, portraying him as beyond time, space, and material existence. God is described as the first and the last, without beginning or end, unbound by physical dimensions, and beyond the grasp of human perception, highlighting his unmatched transcendence and otherness. The word hadith means saying, communication, or report, and refers to the records of the words and actions of the Prophet Muhammad. Every hadith consists of two parts: isnad, chain of narrators, meaning the names of the individuals who transmitted the hadith. This chain is crucial in establishing the reliability of the hadith. Matan, content, meaning the actual text or message of the hadith. There are two main types of hadith based on their source: Qudsi hadith, God's saying. These are sayings attributed to God, but not part of the Qur'an. They offer divine wisdom and guidance. Nabawi hadith, Prophet Muhammad's saying. These are sayings, actions, or approvals of the Prophet Muhammad himself, forming a central part of Islamic teachings. The reliability of hadith is categorized into four main types. Sahih, authentic, meaning the hadiths are considered completely trustworthy with an unbroken chain of reliable narrators. Hasan, good, meaning the hadiths are also generally reliable but may have slight weaknesses in the chain. Da'if, weak, meaning the hadiths have defects in their chain of narrators, making their authenticity questionable. Maudu, fabricated, meaning the hadiths are fabricated reports falsely attributed to the Prophet. Hadith can also be categorized based on how many narrators reported them. Mutawatir, mass transmitted. These hadiths are reported by a large number of narrators, making it impossible for them to be fabricated. Ahad, singular. These hadiths are reported by fewer narrators and are further divided into mashhur, famous, widely known later but started as fewer narrators. Aziz, rare, reported by at least two narrators at each stage. Gharib, isolated, reported by a single narrator at some stage. Hadith plays an essential role in various aspects of Islam and important for understanding Islam beyond the Qur'an. It offers guidance on many topics from worship to ethics and social behavior. By studying Hadith, Muslims gain insights into the life and teachings of the Prophet. However, not all Hadiths are accepted without scrutiny and regardless of their classification. Scholars have disagreed over which Hadiths to include in their collections to the point of clashing against one another, as in the case of Bukhari and Imam Ahmad, two towering figures in the compilation of Hadith. Their differing methodologies reflect the human element in the preservation of Islamic tradition, reminding us that these works, however revered, are not infallible and remain mere works of mere mortals. In contrast to the Qur'an, sent by God and delivered through an archangel to a trustworthy messenger. Next section, Bukhari, a mortal man with an agenda. To illustrate this point, let us begin with Sahih al-Bukhari, often regarded by many Sunni Muslims as the second most authentic book after the Qur'an. This claim alone should prompt serious reflection and shall send chills down anyone's spine who believes in the Qur'an as the unalterable word of God. Examining the highest-ranking hadith collection critically is a practical starting point, saving us time and effort from having to scrutinize the rest of the compilations. Across many hadith books, a common experience for the reader is encountering content that leaves one puzzled and lost. Let me share a personal anecdote. As a child, I was captivated by the bravery of figures like Ali and Hamza, legendary for their courage and fearlessness in battle. Eager to learn more, I reached for a hadith book from our family bookshelf. Though the title has long escaped my memory, As I delved into it, I found myself perplexed by narrations littered with vague phrases like fulan, meaning a certain person but deliberately unnamed, and kada wa kada, translating to this and that, or such and such. The lack of clarity was bewildering. My excitement quickly turned to confusion, and before long I closed the book, returned it to the shelf, and turned on my PlayStation. What follows is one such example, but accompanied with the same version without redaction or alteration. As you can see on the screen, I've displayed a narration from Sahih al-Bukhari. At the bottom is the original Arabic text, with its English translation on the right. The green box shows a Google translation, which reveals discrepancies between the Arabic and the published English version. The red highlights in the English text indicate additions that are absent in the Arabic original. However, this issue pales in comparison to the greater problem at hand. When you examine the Arabic text or its Google translation, it reads, "I asked Ubay ibn Ka'b. I said, 'O Abu al-Mundhir, your brother Ibn Mas'ud says such and such.' Ubay replied, 'I asked the Messenger of God, may God bless him and grant him peace. And he said to me, it was said to me, so I said.' I said, then we say as the Messenger of God, may God bless him and grant him peace, said." Now what does that even mean? It's a cryptic puzzle. But don't worry, I have the answer. It comes from Bukhari's own teacher, and fortunately, the unaltered version of this narration still exists. In Musnad Humaydi, page 367, it reads, "I asked Ubay ibn Ka'b about the Mu'awida ta'in. I said, 'O Abu al-Mundhir, your brother Ibn Mas'ud scrubs them away, form the Mushaf, Qur'an.' Ubay said, 'I asked the Messenger of God, peace be upon him, and he said to me, it was said to me. Say therefore, I said.' I said, then we say as the Messenger of God, may God bless him and grant him peace, said." This narration involves a companion who initially believed that certain verses did not belong in the Qur'an. Upon consulting the Prophet, however, a companion was informed that those verses were indeed divinely revealed, and thus part of the Qur'an. The Prophet clarified that he has been commanded that the verses to be recited, confirming their legitimacy as revelation. The troubling part here is Bukhari's decision to omit significant portions of this narration. One can only speculate about his motives, but I personally believe he aimed to preserve the reputation of the esteemed companion who questioned the verse's inclusion in the Qur'an. If this isn't a prime example of academic dishonesty, I don't know what is. This is just one instance, and these compilations are rife with similar issues. We will delve into more examples of such manipulation in future episodes, where we'll scrutinize multiple seismic events and their far-reaching implications. I'll conclude this video here as part 1. In part 2, I'll present further evidence, including instances of outright falsehoods from Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, demonstrating that these books should be approached with caution. To be clear, I am not advocating for the wholesale rejection of Hadith, as that would be as unreasonable as their total and unquestioning acceptance. Some Hadith are undoubtedly authentic, since they do align with the Quranic teachings and the Prophet's true character. The second part will also address the Prophet's death and the two pivotal events that marked the beginning of the Islamic schism and the transformation of Islamic beliefs. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in part 2.